Hello, hello, my name is Leo, and welcome to a very interesting video today, because this is the first time we have a guest on the show, or on the video, on the channel. Flo, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Flo, please tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Sure. So I'm a director and a producer based in London. I'm originally from Munich. I moved to London to study BA filmmaking, MA directing. Directed 5 short films, micro-budget feature film, and been working a lot with Leo together on several visual effects and whatnot, which has always been a lot of fun.
Yeah, very,
I hope
very
for
true.
you as well.
Yes, you're one of the few directors who I work with who actually have an understanding of visual effects. We have worked together on one of your short films called Florence. That was about a year ago, 2 years ago maybe?
To 19. So it's a short film. It's a 10-minute short about an AI. Fundamentals really that the story really is about is the mother-daughter relationship and how the creator versus creation relationship kind of can not work also in real life. So you can take it as a metaphor for essentially growing up and having a mother that is a bit too restrictive or too overpowering, etc., and doesn't really value the needs that the child has.
Yep.
I thought it was more interesting to in this context to use an AI as opposed to just make it a straight drama. For once, for the metaphorical aspect, and for the others, I think it just allows me and Leo to tell the visual aspects of the story in a slightly more interesting way. And one thing that I'm trying with every project, first of all, to challenge myself, and then secondly to be innovative in the way how I tell stories.
Yep.
So for Florence, that seemed really interesting approach to take this mother-daughter and creator versus creation relationship in the context of a sci-fi as opposed to just a straight-up drama.
One of the things I noticed with Florence is as you said as well, the story is a very basic concept of like human relationships, right? It's a mother and daughter relationship. Yeah. But then the presentation method with the cinematography style, the wide angle shots, the visual effects that's overlaid on top of, I feel like that bridges a gap between the audience that's interested in, watching movies but might find it a drag to watch a movie just about a mother and a daughter.
For sure. I think it makes it also slightly more accessible to a wider audience to get this sci-fi element in it as well.
Yep. Is the film available somewhere to watch already?
It is not. It's just going through festivals. It's probably going to be released early next year.
Okay.
And we are talking with Argo at the moment. They might be interested in it, and yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Before we get into some nitty-gritty director talk that I would like to ask you some questions about, let me show you just like a quick VFX demo on these shots over here. Cool, so we're inside of After Effects. I thought let's have a look at this first shot. Is this the opening shot or the second shot of the film?
The second shot of the film.
What is going on over here?
So this is the first scene in which Florence essentially has been put to trial. So this is a test run for her. She's an AI, therapy AI in a beta status. And this is essentially to convince the CEO that Florence as a therapist works, and that even better than humans.
So one of the things I remember we discussed was if we are able to get the feeling that Florence is getting the emotions, is trying to look at certain aspects of the face, micro expressions, and then from that extract whatever the character is feeling.
Exactly. That was essentially influenced by a TV show. I forgot what it was called. What's the one with Tim Roth? Lie to Me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So Lie to Me is a therapist. Well, he's working for the police, and he uses micro expressions in the face to tell if the people are lying or not. And based on this technology as well, in some airports, the security cameras they run an algorithm that scans the people's faces, and from that data they can tell if that person is likely to commit a terrorist attack, for example.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that concept essentially I've wanted to adapt to Florence, and then we've been trying to figure out how to visualize those micro gestures in the face, I suppose.
What I do like about the concept is that a therapy robot is a very believable, practical function for this technology.
Yeah.
One of the things we did was this kind of effect where these tracking markers are stuck onto the character. It's a super simple effect in After Effects, but because we had so many shots and practically a pretty short amount of time, we had to find ways to make a repetitive effect easy to produce. Now, the first thing on everything is this banding effect that is moving from the left to the right. Basically, we have the pre-comp with all the dot effects, and we are luma masking a white solid that has a gradient ramp effect. And then on top of that gradient ramp, we're using a colorama effect that has this super weird grayscale pattern. And then I was kind of just referencing some old CRT TV banding, and then if you play around with the evolution cycle, the phase shift over here, you get these banding effects, and if we just luma that out, that gives just one extra small layer of detail on top of everything. Inside of the pre-comp 8, you can see that all the text that happens at the end when Florence is recording what the character is saying, that's all just hand animated. Then we have a white solid over here that's using a audio waveform effect, and then we're just referencing the video clip itself as the audio layer, and then based on the samples and the height you can create this really simple effect over here. I believe I got this technique like in 2010 or something from a tutorial that was talking about how to make these dubstep reactive motion videos or something like that. But you know, it's all useful for something else. The rest is really just Photoshop layers with very simple designs of squares and rectangles. From my point of view, at least, the idea was that because this is still a prototype version, even her interior AI display hasn't been fully updated. There are no pops of color, there are no interesting graphics yet.
Yeah, for sure.
And then if we go inside of this, here you can see, so the reason why this is so simple is you take the footage in the background and then you go to animation up here and then track camera. Now you get a 3D track of that camera, and if you then select all the nulls that it creates and then from there just create a solid on each one, then we can really simply select all of them and then apply a mask. And then all these masks have a circular shape, but we could also duplicate each of these masks and subtract them and offset them, so you would have these little circles with a hole in the middle. You could make them squares. You could basically do almost anything with them, and they will stick onto your footage because they're basically just the nulls from your track. It was really a shot-by-shot basis. Every shot had a different character that was being analyzed. There were obvious differences in emotions that each one of them were dealing with, and it was great like talking to you back then about, okay, what's this character doing? Why is this character sad? And then, you know, then going manually into this list of feelings and checking the different ones. Is there anything you want to say about the main VFX of Florence?
Well, as you said, it's very much shot by shot basis. Just for this beginning shot, this is a slide. This is a slider. The camera is tracking back. It starts on the two characters behind the glass. But this is an interesting shot because it's the first time that we've introduced with this new technology. So the shot changes from an objective shot at the very beginning when we see the two characters behind the glass to a subjective shot when the character crosses the fourth wall and looks straight at the camera. Brings us into Florence's head, so to speak. So this is a very important shot to establish her HOD.
Yep. So you basically transition right. It's almost as if you're sliding into her head, right?
Exactly.
So, and what I feel works nicely as well is the focus pull, where it's really excluding the background, and now we are in Florence.
Exactly. It brings us visually from the world into how Florence sees the world. That's another problem that we've encountered, or me also in the script stage and when I shot it, is I wanted to break the fourth wall and have the people, when they're looking at Florence, looking right into the camera.
Yeah.
Because it just adds an element of distress,
Yep.
which was fitting for the film and for the theme and for Florence as a character. If you see through Florence's eyes, you literally can't see Florence as a protagonist, which takes away from the emotional connection that the audience is supposed to have with the protagonist. So balancing when to choose to shoot in this way, as we just see on screen, versus traditionally, was a big challenge. And for that, it was interesting to have a chat with you, Leo, to really see which moments we have to see through Florence's eyes to emphasize her character.
Yes. Was that a challenge on set already? To figure out how to get this coverage to work?
It was a challenge before set.
Yeah.
Because essentially, if you just shoot traditionally and you don't break the fourth wall, then you miss out on what Florence sees and analyzes, which is vital to the story.
Yeah.
But if you only choose to shoot through Florence's point of view, then you don't have any connection with the character because you never see her.
Yes. To be fair, I do find like this film managed to squeeze in a lot of moments where we look through Florence's eyes. If I look back at the older AI-based movies, you tend to only get like one shot to the perspective of the AI.
Yeah, which I think takes you out because it suddenly becomes a thing, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Whereas in Florence, it was important that it feels natural.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why I did this shot at the beginning, which slides from the world into how Florence sees the world.
Because, of course, we went through a few ideas when it came to the actual aesthetic of the film. This is one of those things that always just keeps evolving, right? Because I'm sure that it's different now than the way you had it in your head before you even got a team on board, right? How much do you feel has changed in the aesthetic and in the feel of the film from when you first thought of it?
To be honest, pretty much everything. Obviously, as like my director's prep includes kind of doing mood boards and visual references and the type of things that then I will share with the crew and the DOP to be on the same page in terms of aesthetic and color palette and the overall mood, etc.
Yep.
There's an element of wanted surprise to it, if that makes sense. For example, looking for locations is one of the hardest things to do anyway, because there are so many locations and all are not quite perfect or not what you think you want, etc. But when you get to find a location and you look at the pictures and you're like, I can see that. And that doesn't necessarily have to match with what you've had in mind before. It's just a wanted surprise in that sense that triggers an emotional response to you, and that kind of makes you feel, okay, this is the right choice to do.
Yep.
And that's kind of how that evolves. I mean, the only thing really that stayed the same is the color palette.
Yep.
And the overall kind of slickness that we wanted. But all the other aspects and details, etc., they've just completely changed.
Yep. Slickness is definitely a word that I would associate with this film. It's everything from the characters to the locations and character design, but also the choice of lenses and just the overall aesthetic of the shots. And it's so cold. It's so mechanical, which contrasts so heavily with the story, right? Because it's a mother and daughter relationship.
Well, that's the other thing. One thing that has always worked in film and will always work in film and stories is contrast. Not just visual contrast, also thematical contrast, and antagonist versus protagonist.
Yes. Would you say there is a clear antagonist of the film?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well.
Hint, it's in the title.
Yeah, fair. When you were shooting this, like, you and the cinematographer, obviously, how did you both go about figuring out these kind of moments? Like you were saying, going from a objective point of view into the subjective point of view, and there are multiple of these kind of shots in the film.
Most of the things are pre-planned. Some of the things are just kind of intuition on set.
Yep.
But in the pre-production stage, I would analyze the script and see which moments I don't need to see Florence's reaction.
Yeah, of course.
Plus, for the first scene, for this one here, it's important to be in Florence's shoes. So this was narratively a quite quick decision to say, okay, we're gonna break the fourth wall here because we want to feel the audience as if they were Florence.
Yep.
There was also a point where we didn't have enough of these shots, and then I felt this is gonna feel awkward. It's gonna be a thing. We are setting something up at the beginning that we never pick up on later on.
Yeah, of course.
And so then there were some moments we found where it could work because it was something so Florence specific that she needs to see, but we don't need to see a reaction because it's kind of the audience understands it without seeing her reaction.
Let's have a quick moment to have a look at the trailer, and then I want to ask you a
sure.
few more quick questions.
I know you feel angry.
Don't you dare tell me how I feel!
My dad said I should speak to someone like you.
I am not fine. I am not.
I like the trailer.
Thank you. Gabby did this.
Ah, Gabby! Shout out to Gabby.
Shout out to Gabby. Thank you, Gabs.
Download Gabster's workspace, artstation.com/store. You know, links in the description.
Exactly.
Let me ask you something that I've been wondering about. Is everything possible nowadays for indie film productions?
It's a very broad question.
Could you, as a filmmaker, come up with a crazy idea, and would the technology that we have today allow you to get pretty damn close?
Well, mostly. It does depend a bit on your budget. Or not. Well, first of all, you need a story. If the story if the story works and is great, then if you have many like VFX involved, let's say, mostly, yes, you're gonna reach a point where budget is just too big of a constraint to make it look that extra element of convincing. But mostly, I think that you can pull pretty much everything off nowadays.
I would say the same. You are now recently dabbling a bit in Unreal Engine, and you are also working on a few new projects. Anything you can say about that? How have you been feeling about Unreal?
I can tell you that I can't see you.
Yes, you're right.
Well, so it's very exciting. So, besides just directing, I've also been very interested in doing 3D stuff, animations, playing around in Cinema 4D, etc., etc., etc. And it's just a very valuable tool for me to either pre-visualize things.
Yes.
If I have a location, I can't recreate the location really, or I need more time. I can rebuild that location in Cinema 4D, or now I can rebuild it in Unreal Engine and kind of sit with my DOP there and have a think about the blocking, so how the characters move.
Yep.
what they will be doing, etc. And then we can essentially pre-light the whole thing and pre-render the whole thing in camera, really, in PC,
Yep.
and doing it CGI. And then that looks crap, obviously, because we are not aiming for full quality. But if you invest enough time into it, and you render it at like high resolution and proper settings with proper lighting, with global illumination and ray tracing, etc., 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 that then can become the film itself.
Yep. Yep.
And now with Unreal Engine 5 being released as an open beta at the moment, and introducing especially Nanite,
Yes.
is very exciting because everything renders in real time. You don't have to wait for your 20,000 frames to render. It kind of does it in real time, which is great. And considering that you can build a landscape with scans from Quixel, which have 8K textures on them, and you can just stack them up, and you can have 600,000 of those objects in the scene, and it renders in real time.
Yep.
That is a real game changer.
Oh yes,
And-
absolutely.
And nowadays, also with newer and more affordable motion tracking devices, like Rococo, I think is one called.
Yep.
They are still expensive. It's just a hobby. I mean, one of those yields costs around 5K.
Yep.
But it's definitely much more accessible than 5 years ago, where you had to run into a motion capture studio and had to pay all, it breaks the
Yep.
bank.
Yeah, it's a full team to get it done,
Yeah.
and now you could do it at home.
And the only thing that is, for most people, deal breaker is that first you have to familiarize yourself with the software and the technology and all that stuff, and you, as a craftsman, you have to get to a technical level that looks convincing,
Yes.
and putting that effort into learning a new piece of software that you have no idea about, which is also not the easiest one to learn.
Yes. True.
That is the threshold in terms of if any idea you would want to make is doable or not.
Because right now you're mainly using Unreal Engine for pre-visualization and planning out with your DOP what you're gonna do.
Well, mostly for sketching, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
For creating mood boards. So I'm doing this one new film, a short film, which is a short horror. The style and the tone and the mood of the film is very like Scandinavian crime vibes, etc. It's very dark, very foggy, isolated house, roads where there's no cars as you go out of the city, etc., etc., etc. And the opening shots, there are, as she wrote it, they would be drone shots,
Okay.
but at night. But that brings multiple problems production-wise. So you have to have a licensed drone operator.
Yeah.
You have to have a license to fly on that day, which costs money. The drone operator costs money. The drone costs money. If there's a shot of the actor, you will have to have a special insurance, so the talent is allowed to drive the car, because otherwise, if the talent crashes the car, it's not insured.
Yeah.
You have to have a car. You have to have a car that looks the right way, and renting a car and insuring people, etc., is just a nightmare per se as well. And having that car driving on a road, which kind of starts in a city and kind of ends up in a bit further away area where it's just more woody and more foresty in that sense.
Yep.
Is also just very hard to find. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be dark. You have to have the whole production there. You have to move the people there, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm gonna do for this is I'm just gonna do the entire first few shots in Unreal Engine.
Yep.
Because it's gonna look convincing. The technology is good enough nowadays. It's not gonna cost anything. Unreal Engine is free.
Yep.
Quixel is free. All the assets are free. The only bit that's gonna cost me is me investing my time into it.
Yep.
But I'm gonna have full creative control over what the car is gonna look like, the shape of the trees, what color the trees are gonna have, if it's gonna rain, if it's not gonna rain, if it's gonna be foggy, if it's not gonna be foggy, where the fog starts, where it
Yep.
starts to be foggy. And that having that creative control on your laptop without spending very much is just very great to have.
Yes.
Being able to do this, really.
Where in the film would there be the transition to real footage?
When she arrives at the house.
Okay. And then you cut inside and it's real.
Well, either that or I'll start outside. I have the car arriving. So the shot is on the house. The car pulls up in front of the house. The car's in the foreground, but it's out of focus.
Yep.
And we don't see her physically walking out of the car, but you're gonna hear the car closing and opening, etc. And then she walks towards the house. The car would be CG. She wouldn't. She just hides off frame, and then on a cue walks up to the house.
Green screen? What's the plan?
No, so you're just gonna have a shot of the house.
Yep.
Car pulls up in the foreground.
CG car.
CG car pulls up in the foreground. And the car masks her.
Ah, okay. Yes. Are you gonna do a wipe on her with the car? So you reveal her by having the car wipe into her shot?
I mean, sort of. There's gonna be a backplate where she's not in the shot, and then there's gonna be a shot where she's walking, where the car starts, and then I'm gonna use the car as a front element to cut between the two shots. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Okay, perfect. I see. And then you're just from there on, you are gonna be shooting on a real location.
Yeah.
Yeah. A isolation horror in an Icelandic desolated location.
Scandinavian
location.
Yeah.
Ah, man, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. A lot of things to figure out, but well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long is the pre-production gonna be?
Oh, pre-production already started.
Yeah. One other thing I would like to ask you as well is, let's take it to now, because your Florence was 2019. There's been a lot of change. You've been working on a bunch of stuff. We've been speaking in the meantime, so I kind of know what you've been up to. I'll leave links in the description so people can find your work and they can update themselves. But how do you feel now as a director? How do you communicate with your team? What are your main pointers that you think about when you're starting a production? All that kind of good stuff, all the director stuff.
Still, the most important thing really is the story and to get the script right.
Yes,
And
very much.
That's at that stage when you write it and when you think about it, when you have the ideas, etc. Just write everything in. Like, don't think about, oh, this is gonna be too hard to pull off, and oh, this is gonna be too complicated, or oh, this is gonna cost a lot of money. Just don't think about all these production issues, because you're not writing a script for the sake of pleasing the production. You're writing a script because you want to tell a specific story, and when the specific story requires specific elements that you feel like they're in, then they should be in.
Yes, I agree completely. I feel like it's so often that the script gets compromised because you're living in a fear that you're not going to be able to pull it off. And
yeah, exactly.
It just makes the whole end product be a half-assed version of what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for pretty much any problem, there's a solution.
Yes.
If you write something specific and that you really want to have, well, there are two solutions. Either you just throw a lot of money at it and it's gonna solve itself.
Yeah.
If you don't have a lot of money, then you're hopefully gonna have a lot of time, because if you put enough of your effort and time into it, then you can make it yourself as well.
Yes.
It's a learning curve. It's gonna take a while. It's probably gonna take much longer than if you just throw money at it. But at the end of the day, there isn't really any problem that you can't solve, I think,
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
if you put enough time into it.
Yeah, if you put enough time into it. And do you usually, I know for Florence you worked with a co-writer or a writer.
Yeah, right.
Writer.
Yeah.
Shout out Tom. Like, and now have you been writing yourself, or you still like to work with writers?
I like to work with writers. I've been doing some writing myself as well.
Yep.
Just to practice creativity.
Yes.
And story. I'm not sure if that script will be made just solely written by me, or if I'm gonna get someone else on board who's interested in giving it another look and polish it.
Yep.
But generally speaking, I like to write with writers, but you have to find the right writer.
Yeah.
It's a very personal thing, I think. You have to make sure that both of you want to tell the same story. I think there has to be a decent amount of respect to each other.
Yes.
And telling the story usually works better if you have some sort of personal attitude towards it.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't make a film about something that you don't care about. Like
Yeah.
you have,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you write about something, or if you make a film about something, you care about the themes and the message that you want the audience to take away from. So there are also writers who just don't care about the theme.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You gotta spot that early on and just move on to a different writer, probably.
But it just should be an open conversation whether the themes that you want to make this film about are the same themes that the writer wants to explore.
Yes.
Yeah, that just should be straight up a very open conversation at the very beginning. Because if the writer doesn't agree with the themes, or is just not interested in telling these type of stories, then there's no point in collaborating.
Okay, I got a question. So, uniqueness in movies is a topic that I find a bit tricky. Because Hollywood blockbusters, obviously, they love repeating themselves to cash out whatever project they can still milk. When it comes to like student films or indie films, I feel like it's very important to get that uniqueness. And how do you approach this? How do you figure out, okay, this is a story I want to tell. This is, as you said, personal enough to me in the themes so that I am interested in it. Does it go deeper than that? Or am I tripping?
So what's the question in one sentence? How to make a unique film?
How to make a unique film?
Yeah, you're right. It's a tricky one. I think you need to find the degree to which you get influenced by other things.
Okay. Elaborate.
I'm a believer that story structure has always been the same and is still the same from the rules that Aristotle wrote a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Stories have been told in this way for many years, for thousands of years. And I don't think messing with these fundamental rules for the sake of being unique is a good thing, because it's likely not gonna work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The uniqueness comes in by the way you tell the story. At the end of the day, every story really, there's a book about it. I forgot the name now, unfortunately. But I think there's only, one book says there's only 7 stories that can be told, and another book it says there's only 15 stories that can be told. In regards to the themes and protagonist and antagonist, what these characters are and what their core conflict is. So by choosing what you're gonna make it about is not gonna be unique anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I see.
It's gonna be unique the way you tell it. That's what I meant with influence, because if you get too influenced by other films that you like, or by other things that you think is cool, then there's a chance that it's not going to be unique and just kind of a copycat. Because if you feel something is cool in a film, it's usually not cool because it's cool. It's cool because it makes sense for that particular film and those particular circumstances with these specific settings. Just copy and pasting something that looks cool is not gonna reflect the story and the themes in that way that would make it unique.
What I think is a good example for Florence is how I remember when I would tell people the logline of Florence, a lot of people would ask me, "Oh, is it like Ex Machina?" And then I'm like, "No, it's not like Ex Machina," but that's what makes it interesting, because the Ex Machina is such a dominant film in the recent zeitgeist of people when it comes to creepy AI lady. And it has basically dominated that whole archetype. But Florence still manages to find its very unique own personal story that it's trying to tell inside of there. Like, as you said before, you and Tom were really writing a mother and daughter relationship that just happens to be under the hood of an AI story.
Yeah. The uniqueness also comes, well, for once through the visual things, but secondly and most importantly through the characters. I mean, the best, in my opinion, the best films are about people and not about things. So you have this whole conversation about plot-driven versus character-driven movies.
Yep.
Pretty much every Hollywood movie is plot-driven. Pretty much every independent movie is character-driven.
Yep.
Because indies, they make films about people and not films about things. And if your character is interesting enough, and if you know what you want to tell with this character, and if this character has specific struggles and specific flaws and needs and wants and whatnot, and dreams and ambitions, if that character is fully fleshed out, it's quite hard to not make it unique, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
If you're at that stage, because you obviously want to tell a story about this one specific character.
Yes. And that one character, the more and more it gets developed, obviously through the writing process, and then when the actors get involved, is there also some character development there?
Yeah. I mean, yes. With when you well, casting's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
You kind of have something in your mind that you would want the character to be, or that you, as a director, think the character is going to look like.
Yep.
Which usually is absolute bullshit. That thing that you have in your mind of the character usually is not going to be the thing that ends up being the film.
Yes.
In terms of actors. When I do castings, I love doing castings. I love working with actors. I like people, working with people in general creatively.
Yep, absolutely.
And what you notice when you do castings, or more specifically, what I'm looking for is the actors that come in and surprise me. They get a script, they get a scene, and you're gonna see that probably 85% of the actors that come in, obviously that is not AAA actors, but like the general
Yep.
acting community, 85 of them will come in, and they will make exactly the same choices about every same word in that scene.
Yes, very
in
true.
terms of how they deliver it, what the intention behind that word is, what they think the subtext for that line would be.
Yep.
Um,
The pacing, the intonation, most people from whatever background they have in acting do read the script exactly the same way.
exactly. Also with the same gestures, weird face expressions when they're surprised.
Yes. yes.
They do it differently, obviously, but like the general thing is still the same, right? Not interested in that because that doesn't bring me any uniqueness. That brings me generic acting in terms of she's gonna be surprised in this moment, so I'm gonna act in this way.
Yep.
85% of the actors will do that. I'm interested in the 15% of the actors that make different choices for specific lines. And then when I ask them afterwards, oh, that was a very interesting choice that you made when you said yada yada yada, they will have an interesting reason why they did that, and that reason that adds to the character and that shapes the character again.
Yeah.
That's these things is what makes the character come off the page as opposed to being a generic character.
It sounds as well as if you're basically just working with actors who are interested in the project on a deeper level. They actually care.
Well, I don't think it's about caring or not caring. I think it's about the other actors. They're still like good actors. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like they're awful. Like on a technical level, like they're most of them are great, but I'm interested in the people that make distinct different choices than the others in terms of actors.
Yep.
Just because they feel something, maybe a connection or something. They feel something that the others didn't.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what makes it interesting and also exciting.
No, absolutely. Yep. So then you get all your actors together. Then on set, obviously, there's a whole different vibe. Then, do you feel pressure on set? No, not at all. No, not really, right? You're just chilling. It's your set.
Well, that's the fun part. If you've done your prep, there's not really much that you need to be stressed about.
Yeah.
If you know your actors, like usually I try to have coffee with my actors before at Starbucks or something, just to have a chat and kind of see what kind of person they are, and so that they can see what kind of person I am.
Yep. Get a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, essentially it's about establishing a relationship of trust.
Yep.
Because actors they are very vulnerable. I mean they stand in the middle of a room and they put their entire soul out, and there are 15 people around them looking at them.
Yep.
And it's important for them to feel to experience trust between the director and the actor.
Yes. Yeah.
And once you've done that, and you've done your shot list, you've done your prep, you know what the things are that you really want to say and that you really want to nail. Then being on set is kind of it's just the fun part, really. Because
what you've been waiting up for.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit depressing as well, especially for short films, because you put so much prep time into short films, like it's 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, sometimes a year. And when you get to the fun part, which is actually shooting the film, it only lasts 3 days, and then afterwards...
yeah, that's it.
It's, yeah.
And then comes post-production.
Yeah.
So you work with Gabby on Florence?
Yes.
That was I remember this film had a pretty long editorial period.
It did.
It went through like quite a few variations. I remember speaking to you about it like all the time. The different cuts.
Yes. Yes, so for this one also what we did, because Gabi wasn't available early on because she was tied up with another job,
Yep.
we had an assistant editor, and that's Paola,
Yep.
she essentially put the first cut together, narratively speaking, which was interesting, and then Gabi would take over and kind of fine cut that a bit more.
Yep.
Something that happened as well, which is something that we missed in the pre-production stage, is that, well, first of all, watching the first rough cut always is painful. You will always hate it. It's gonna look absolutely awful, and you're gonna wonder why you just throw 10K at this film.
Don't get discouraged by your rough cut. It's always shite.
Exactly, always, absolutely always. Yeah, like always.
Yes.
And which was fine, but we sort of figured that the ending that we shot didn't really work,
Oh yes, I remember.
which was painful.
Yeah.
And then we were thinking about whether to reshoot some things or not, or if we can just solve it with having the actresses recording different lines and cheating it a bit, etc., etc. The technical part was not the problem. The problem was actually to figure out what we actually wanted it to be.
Yes.
Once you know what you're gonna do, it's quite simple to kind of put the things in place. It's just organizational things and some paperwork maybe, but that's not that's not the problem. The problem is to be clear in your head about what exactly it has to be.
Do you
And
feel
that
like you
took-
lose the thread at some point?
What it has to be?
Yeah.
Oh, constantly.
Yep.
Through all stages. Writing, you write a draft, you think it's great, you read it back next week, that's shit. That's a never-ending story, and only if you've formulated it a couple of times and wrote it down in a very specific way, well, then it still can be that 3 weeks later you're like, I'm not sure if that's actually what I want to say. I feel like it's more like this. But that's never ending story. But yeah, at the end of the day, as more as you keep tweaking the edit, as better it's gonna get. And it's also fun to kind of explore different things. So I think for Florence we explored a few different variations of the ending and the beginning, etc. We've cut some scenes completely out because we felt that they were not necessary.
Yes.
So it's fun also to experiment a bit, and if you truly feel that it feels right, then it probably is.
Mm-hmm.
It's dangerous though to say, yeah, okay, I think it's good, because you just lie to yourself. You have to like truly believe that you feel that it feels right. You can't just say it feels right because you don't want to waste more time on it.
Yeah.
That's a pitfall.
How do you deal with deadlines for your own personal projects? Because this was kind of a personal project, but also, you did have like plans for where it had to go afterwards.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with personal deadlines? Do you just work towards a date?
Well, because I'm working part-time as well, and sometimes I need a break as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking where it's a rough deadline. Like, for example, at the beginning of in 2 months, it would be nice if we can do this and this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be too strict about it, because otherwise I just feel like I just live to work, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yes.
But it's important to finish the projects that you've started.
Yes.
First of
Absolutely.
all, it gives you a feeling of achievement, and it keeps you motivated. And secondly, yeah, I just have more things
Yep.
to show.
How do you feel like Florence has benefited your future career right after you made it, up till this point?
But right after I made it, not really at all, because obviously no one saw it.
Yes. Yeah.
But well, I like it. I think it's good. I think it's the second short that I watched back, and I generally am happy about,
Good.
which is a very big personal achievement. Because the first few shorts that I made, I look back and it's not worth even mentioning.
I recognize the feeling 100%.
So, yeah, having come to this point to make something and like be actually happy about watching it is good. So that's the most important thing, actually, really.
Yep.
And then from then on, we've applied to a company for festivals. So essentially, this company watches your film and gives you a list of festivals which they have either connections to or they feel it's suitable for. Because all over the world there are around 20,000 festivals, you don't have time to just look through all of them.
No, this is a very interesting topic for a lot of young filmmakers, I think. So, how does this platform work? They just have their own network of film festivals and they judge whether your film festival would fit?
Well, it's called Festival Formula.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been around for quite a while now. And they have relationships to some festivals, mainly in the UK, but they are aware of all the festivals that are around.
Yep.
And you can apply to them and they watch your film. There's a chance that they're not going to take the film because they don't feel like it will get anything or is
Yep.
not at a certain level. So they don't take anyone.
Yep.
But if they take you, then they will provide you with they will do the research, they will watch the film, they will think about the themes and about the story, the type of story, and also like production things, as in if it's a LGBTQI plus film, then there are specific festivals that favor these type of films. If it's a female director, then there are specific festivals that have specific prizes for female directors, etc., etc., etc. So they know the festivals and they know the categories, and they will compile a list that they feel like your film has the most chances to get in.
Yeah.
And it's attached with a fee. So I think they have two packages. One package is they just give you a list essentially and do the research, but you have to apply to the festivals yourself. That's I think £850.
Yep.
And then they have like an all-inclusive package where they also submit the films and write the cover letters and these type of things, and that's £1,500.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, one thing: schedule festival fees in your budget. Budget for festival fees.
Yes. If you want to go to festivals, put it in your budget, because that can be a massive chunk of just unexpected money.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I know a lot of listeners will say 850, 1,000. That sounds like so much money, but like I guess one piece of advice I can give from my dad, who is in not the film industry at all, but in the traditional solar business industry. Basically, his advice is always pay an intermediary to make all your documents, to then get into the deeper layers of a funding cycle or investment cycle or whatever it is. So for a film festival, I think it's the same thing. I think it's very important for you as a filmmaker to be a objective judge of your own film, to first of all know whether this is something that could potentially win at all or get nominated at all. And if it's good enough, then yeah, what you just recommended sounds like a perfect bridge. Just budget it in, and it gives you a few better odds.
Yeah. Yeah, festivals, yeah, it's a whole different topic.
Whole different topic. But as you said, when your film is through with the festivals and people can actually see Florence, then I would love to hear from you again, like all the whole film festival process, how that went about.
For sure.
Finally,
100%.
one more thing I want to ask you. So you have a production company.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
It's called Specular Films. Now you're gonna tell me what specular means.
So it's basically the shiny glossiness, right? Is
Yeah.
that a super simplistic way of saying it?
Well, yeah, essentially, yeah.
Specular Films. You're doing a lot of different things, because you started a few years ago really dabbling into the CG side of things. What is it that you're doing? You're doing client visualizations, ads.
So we are a boutique production company in London, and we kind of focused on branded content and commercials.
Yep.
With or without VFX and CGI elements in it. One thing that we've been doing for a client in the UK, which is called Master Charge. We've done essentially product photography, but as CGI, so as renders.
Yep.
There's so many pros to doing it this way as opposed to just taking pictures, I think. Because it just gives much more flexibility. You can change the logo if the logo changes. You can change the material if the material changes. You can set dress everything however you want. You have everything in your computer. You don't need to book a location. You don't need to have a photo studio. There's just so many pros to doing it that way.
Yep.
And for them, we also do an animation. Of the wireless product, the wireless charger, and the same goes for Caneas, which is a coffee brand.
Oh yeah, saw that.
Or like a coffee shop style. For them we did some renders of coffee cups. Yep. For a social media campaign essentially. And yes, that's kind of that. In terms of yes, go on.
Oh, no. Go, please, proceed.
Well, in terms of companies in general, the hardest thing to find is clients.
Yeah. Good. So you're basically London-based.
Yeah.
And people also, your clients, do they also come mainly from London or from the UK?
No, they're kind of all over the world, really.
Okay.
Which also makes it easier to just do 3D things and CGI things because it's just sending files, really.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So remote working is a big plus in that sense.
Yeah. How have you been feeling about Specular Films? It's been great to just follow along what you guys have been doing.
No, it's good. It's fun. It's tough. It's time intensive to work part-time and then having your own company and then making short films and then having personal projects.
Yes. Yeah.
And prioritizing is important in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's good as well because it allows you a certain flexibility, right? So you can say, okay, sorry, I'm not taking on this client job right now because I'm doing this personal project. Or, I'm like moving my personal project because I don't have a deadline for it a week later, so I can do this other thing for a client job this week.
Well, sort of. Like, you kind of want to have as many clients as you can.
Nah, okay.
You wouldn't want to say no to a potential new client. It's just because it's just a lot of competition.
Yep.
And you can be happy if you are a starting out company and clients first of all have the trust to invest in you,
Yep.
and you have to find something why they should choose you over someone else.
Yep.
For once, that can be spec work. So I did a animation for a wireless charger.
Yep.
And then contacted the multiple companies, and one came back and said, "Yeah, it's cool. We like it. Let's do it." And that's the client that I've just talked about.
So spec work
'Cause-
actually helped out.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. It's a big plus if you can show the clients what they can get before they even know that you exist.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Oh no,
And
absolutely.
yeah, then there's also gonna be people that are gonna be cheaper.
That's one of the things I was gonna say. Are you more on the expensive side or are you more on the cheaper side?
Depends on the project.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, depends on the project
Because there's like
and on the client.
and on the client. Yeah. Because especially in the CG world, it's so common to feel like you can go cheaper, right? It's, well, I don't have to hire the photo studio. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. I could do everything on Unreal Engine. So it's like, well, how much are you gonna charge? Well, electricity and the time of my day. But obviously that's not how it works, right? There's a big received value on the other hand that you're trying to get compensated for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So it's also just a people thing. If the person likes you, and you do good work and you meet deadlines, and you're professional, then they're gonna keep giving you jobs. If the person just doesn't like you because, I don't know, something, it's not that helpful. So
Absolutely true. A
Yeah.
very underrated topic in my opinion, because there's so much emphasis on teaching people how to do lead generation and teaching people how to get a killer portfolio. But the most basic communication skills of human relationships seems to be what still gets most jobs and what still keeps you getting most jobs.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That kind of stops when you're a AAA company and
Yes.
you've won multiple Cannes awards for your commercials. Then that kind of changes a bit. Maybe I don't think it's gonna change like at all. I don't think it's gonna be the opposite.
Yes.
But that's surely part of it.
Yep.
I mean, yeah. If it's kind of a starting out position with a relatively small company, but there are so many people who can do the exact same thing that you can do.
Yep.
Maybe better.
Yep.
And there's people that can do it cheaper. So yeah, having that personal connection when you start is very important, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I think so too. Let me see. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else that you want to ask or say or whatever? Anyone you want to shout out?
No,
Not really?
I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Well, I don't know, man. I think I've pretty much gone through everything as well for now. Until we get on a new video.
Next week, right?
Yeah, exactly. Weekly appearance of Flow.
I'm shooting next week. Sorry, week after.
Shit.
2-week cycle.
Well, good luck with your shoot next week.
Thank you.
For sure. And
Thank you very much.
yeah, man. Well, it was great to get you on here.
Thank
It's
you.
wonderful.
My pleasure.
If anyone in the comments has questions, just leave them and I'll pass them on to Flo. And
Yeah, just shout out.
yeah, you'll get your answers. I'll be fine.
Yes, for sure.
Cool. Thank you very much, mate.
Cool, thank you.
Yo, laters. Bye bye.
Have a lovely day. Bye bye.